So very good morning to all the students. In today's lecture we shall be discussing about the last and the final novel extract, that is 4.4, The Sign of 4. So the author of this particular novel is Sir Arthur Ignatius Conan Doyle, born 22nd of May 1859 and death and passed away at 7th of July 1930. He was a British writer who created the famous character of Sherlock Holmes. All of you know who is Sherlock Holmes. Many of us have been die-hard fans of Sherlock Holmes, the supreme detective. Originally a physician, that's a doctor, in 1887 he published a study in Scarlet, the first of the four novels and more than 50 stories about Holmes and Dr. Watson. So this is one of the remarkable, you can say, pairs in detective fiction, that is Sherlock Holmes and his friend Dr. Watson. The Sherlock Holmes stories are generally considered milestones in the field of crime fiction. Doyle was a prolific writer. Other than Holmes stories, his works include fantasy and science fiction, stories about Professor Challenger, and humorous stories about the Napoleonic soldier Brigadier Gerard, as well as plays, romances, poetry, non-fiction, and historical novels. One of Doyle's early stories, J. Hubbard Jefferson's statement, helped to popularize the mystery of Mary Celeste. The Sign of Four is the second novel of Arthur Conan Doyle in which Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson solves the mystery of hidden treasure and murder. So here are such a wonderful and prolific writer for the last novel, that is The Sign of Four. Let us now move on to the major characters. Now, the characters here, as usual, are Sherlock Holmes, Mary Watson, Thaddeus Salto, Toby, John Watson, Major Sholto again, and Tonga. So there are no minor characters in this particular extract, as all of them are equally important because some of them are very mysterious, some of them are round characters, some of them are flat characters, some of them are villains, and some of them are heroes. Beginning with Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, both are friends. Mary Watson is one of their clients. Major Sholto, Thaddeus Salto, the they are just pairs, Tonga and Toby. Moving on to the outline of the novel now. The novel begins with Holmes and Dr. Watson engaged in a discussion with Mary Watson, a young woman who desires Holmes' advice, soon visits the two at their place. During the meeting, Mary tells that after their father disappeared under mysterious circumstances some 10 years ago, she began receiving a large pearl in the mail on the same day of every year. So this young lady came to help or to seek advice at the footsteps or at the doorsteps of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. So she's a young woman, very smart, very not very beautiful but elegant, and she tells that many years ago her father had disappeared unknowingly. She does not know what happened to him, but 10 years ago it was the last time when she saw him. And after some years, at the same day, she started receiving a large pearl, and that happened every year after year. She tells that she has received a letter instructing her to go with the accompaniment of two friends to Lyceum Theatre. The letter receives a hint that some injustice has been done to her. Holmes and Watson agree to accompany Mary. Soon, Watson and Mary are attracted to one another. So she also learns that these letters are instructed something which tell that some injustice is happening to her or has happened to her. The letter gives instructions, she follows the instructions, and she finds the pearl. Soon, Watson is attracted toward this young woman, Mary. When the three are heading to the Lyceum Theatre, Holmes, Watson, and Mary, they are whisked away in the darkened carriage to a strange house. Within, they find an eccentric gentleman named Thaddeus Sholto. He reveals that not only has Mary's father died, but also she is partially heir to a great hidden treasure. So, after heading to the Lyceum Theatre as instructed in the letter, they are moved on to a very strange place, unknown place, where they find a very eccentric gentleman, means a very serious kind of gentleman, a very rich kind of gentleman named as Thaddeus Sholto. He reveals that her father has died and she is the partner of a very great hidden treasure that was found by her father and Thaddeus' father. Thaddeus goes on to explain that his father always lived in fear of men with wooden legs and on occasion struck out at perfect strangers who were so handicapped. On his deathbed, the elder Sholto revealed to his sons the existence of the treasure, but just before he could tell them where it was, the face of a bearded man appeared in the window, and the old man suffered a fatal heart attack. So he reveals that his father, both of their fathers together, they discovered one kind of treasure, and whenever they could ask him about the treasure, he could somehow, while narrating the story, would get very fearful after thinking about the men with wooden legs. And once, when he was on his deathbed, he passed away after he saw a particular man with a beard. The next morning, a note was found affixed to the body. It read, "Sign of Four." Thaddeus proceeds to explain that after searching for years for the treasure, his brother Bartholomew discovered it in the hidden attic in the family's house. So, hidden attic means a hidden room or a hidden chest where they actually find a kind of treasure, and on the note was written "Sign of Four." On his deathbed, the brothers' father made them swear they would share the treasure with Mary Matson, who has some unknown claim in the fortune. So, when their father was about to die, they tell her about Mary, and she has to be given some treasure from it as if she's the partner of it. Thaddeus concludes by entreating the three to accompany him to the family estate where they will divide up the fortune. When they arrive at the family estate, the three find a shaken housekeeper who claims that Bartholomew has not emerged from his locked room all day. Holmes and Watson peer through the keyhole of the room and find an unnatural grinning face leering at them. Breaking down the door, they find the body of Bartholomew, a poisoned thorn on his neck. After investigating for some time, Holmes concludes that two persons, one of whom had a wooden leg, committed the crime. According to Holmes, the second person was an especially interesting individual. It is also become apparent that the murders have stolen the Agra treasure. So the entire process, the entire hidden treasure is related to the Agra treasure. And Thaddeus's brother, that is Bathnu, he is somewhere involved in it. When they go to his home, one of the housekeeper tells that he has not come out all day, and when Holmes and Watson peer, means they look through the keyhole, they see a one unnatural face looking at them. An unnatural grinding face was looking at them, returning from the keyhole, and they just doubt that something terrible has happened to him. And when they move in, they find a poisoned thorn on Bartholomew's neck. So somewhere they come to the conclusion that he has to been murdered in the dissimilar manner as their father was. So they come to know about the Agra treasure, and the two people who are behind the crime, one of them has a wooden leg, and second one is very interesting individual according to whom stories or the this detective fiction stories, if you have heard about them, the Sherlock Holmes would never reveal the real murderer. So somewhere now Mary also comes to know that the entire process, the entire her father being lost, death of Bartholomew and others, is somewhere related to a treasure. And this is the story, this is the theme of the novel. One of the Holmes' deductions revealed that the wooden-legged man stepped in Cristo during this escape. Following up to this lead, Holmes and Watson borrow a dog to follow the scent. Their search leads them to the edge of Thames, the river, where it is clear that two criminals hired a boat. Over the next few days, Holmes recruits his Baker Street irregulars. So this particular gang is a gang of small children, orphanage children, a gang of small orphan children, and he tells them to search for a boat at the river. When these efforts fail, Holmes in disguise makes a search himself and discovers that the boat, the Aurora, has been camouflaged. So he finds a boat named as Aurora, and it has been tried to be cover up that boat. That night, Holmes, Watson, and several officers pursue the Aurora in a police barge. So they try to find this particular boat, and after finding the boat, they gradually overtake the boat, which contains a wooden legged captain and a small pygmy native from the Andaman Islands. The native attempts to shoot Holmes with a blowpipe, which contains the same types of darts or arrows which have poison on them, and is consequently shot down by both Holmes and Watson. The Aurora runs aground and the wooden legged man becomes entrapped in the mud. Subsequently, he is captured. So there is a pursuit, there is a what is it, race for life between the boat Aurora and the police, and where somewhere they find that particular person with the wooden leg, and they also find a native person, means a person who lives in that those particular areas. They find a person who is continuously blowing those darts on Holmes and Watson, and subsequently he is being shot by one of them. This boat runs off the ground, and where there is mud, and this wooden legged man tries to run away, but unfortunately he is captured between them. The wooden legged man, whose name is Jonathan Small, is brought back to the Baker Street along with an iron box which was found on the boat. Captain Small proceeds to relay the story of Agra treasure, which began when he was stationed as a fortress gatekeeper in India. Small explains that he was approached by three Arab guards and offered a share in a great fortune if he would help them murder the man who carried it. So this entire story is back again in India, when one of them, Captain Small, says that this entire process started when Jonathan Small was one of the gatekeepers of this particular treasure, where it was a big fort, and three Arab guards had come. They hatched a plan of killing the person who was having this particular treasure. When the man, an emissary from a wealthy sheikh, arrived, the three Arabs murdered this man as Small blocked his escape. The four conspirators hid the treasure, but soon after they were arrested for the murder of the emissary. So unfortunately, even if that they murder that particular emissary, that person, they got caught, and soon they were sent to different places or different jails. Small was sent to for penal colony on the Andaman island, where he managed to befriend a native Tonga, who became his loyal companion. Small bribed two of the guards on the island, Sholto and Mortson, that is none other than Mary's father, into helping him escape in the exchange of the share in the fortune. The two agreed, and Sholto left to bring back the treasure. After some time, it became apparent to Small that Sholto had betrayed him. So the entire process started when Small was sent to a particular island. He befriends a person there named as Tonga, which became his best friend and his companion. They managed to bribe in exchange of money. You let me go from here, and one of them was Mary's father, and another was Sholto. And when they agreed for the share of fortune, when the treasure will be brought back, then the two agreed, and Sholto left to bring back the treasure. After some time, it became apparent to Small that Sholto had betrayed him, and he escaped from the island with Tonga. So Small understood that his best friend and his companion has again betrayed him, and Sholto and Tonga had left the island with the treasure. After many years, Small had tracked down Sholto and arrived just in time to see him die. After that, Small affixed the note that was found on the body as a reference to himself with the three Arab companions. When he returned to Sholto's estate, Tonga murdered Bathno and the two stole the treasure. So there is always a twist and turn in the entire story because of the treasure. If Small had hatched the plan with Tonga, if they both agreed to bring the treasure back, they would become rich. But unfortunately, one of them is killed, and Tonga kills Bathno, and this entire story keeps on going on. Small concludes his narrative by reliving that in the course of the chase on the Thames, he threw the treasure overboard. Small is taken in prison, and Watson, who has come to love Mary Mortson, proposes to her. Now, understanding the theme of the novel. The theme of the novel revolves around the Agra treasure. Throughout the story, the appearance of the treasure leads to the direct and often tragic change in the lives of the characters. So, whenever this particular treasure enters a particular person's life, there is only tragedy, there is only unhappiness in his life. The same happens with the characters. Because of this, it is important that the removal of the treasure would would cause the characters to return to their previous positions. In the case of Small, a convict, the re-emergence of treasure leads him down a path that ends in murder. A convict means he's already a prisoner, he's already one kind of small thief. But when this particular treasure comes into his life, he becomes a murderer. With the removal of the treasure, he is a prisoner once again. And once again, the treasure moves away from his hand and he is a prisoner once again. Mary Watson is a charming young woman whom Watson contemplates marrying, with the prospect of Mary becoming an heiress. However, this possibility is removed. That means if she is the one who's going to get this particular treasure, somewhere Mary Watson becomes the target of all the people, because the treasure, when it enters the life of the people, their life is filled with sadness, unhappiness. When it is discovered that the Agra treasure is gone, Mary returns to the position in which Watson can comfortably propose marriage. So there was a case where she thought that Watson thought that if she gets that treasure, she'll become very rich and she'll there's no possibility of marrying her. But when the treasure is gone away from her life, there is a chance that Watson can marry her. The shallowness of wealth and the destruction that come through it is also seen prevailing through the novel. As the Agra treasure directly and adversely affects almost everyone in the course of the story, the Sheikh's emissary and Bartholomew are both murdered for the treasure. Somewhere, this particular treasure can be cursed. Wherever it enters the life of the people, their life is doomed. Tonga is killed while fleeting with it, and Small is sentenced to life imprisonment. Additionally, both Thaddeus and his father spend their lives constantly paranoid about wooden legged men. So, somewhere, the person who is directly or indirectly related with the treasure have to suffer traumas. One got killed while fleeting with it, means he was trying to take it away from the people, killed. One convict becomes a murderer. People who are actually in search of it are constantly haunted by the feeling that wooden legged men are trying to follow them, and strangers in general. The Agra treasure even provides. Let us now have the discussion on the synopsis of the extract. So, the novel opens, or the synopsis of this particular chapter opens at Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes were discussing on general issues when they were interrupted by the arrival of Miss Mary Mostyn, who has a case for Sherlock to solve. Mary's appearance tells that she was not very beautiful, but she yet was a very well disciplined and a little bit beautiful girl, and she has one particular problem, or she has a particular case which needed Sherlock's attention. Mary tells about her father's sudden disappearance on a trip many years ago. So she starts telling that many years ago her father had come to meet her once, but after that suddenly her father got disappeared. A few years later, an advertisement was published in a newspaper asking for her address, which she gave, and ever since then, on the same day of each year, she received a rare and expensive pearl. So she said that after a few years, after her father's disappearance, there was a new in the newspaper there was someone who was asking for her address. So she gave it. Now the question which arises in many of our minds is that how could a person give his or her personal address to an unknown publisher or an advertisement? But she gave it, and ever since then she has been receiving a very expensive pearl same day of each year. This continued for some more years, but today she received a letter asking to meet her. So this kept on happening for some years, and later, one particular day, it happened that that particular person who was sending her the rare pearls now wants to meet her. The letter warned Mary not to bring the police with her. Mary requests Holmes and Watson to accompany her to place so that they can figure out the secret behind it. Both agree to accompany her. Sherlock recommends Dr. Watson to read Wentworth Reed's book, Martyrdom of Man, and leaves the room in search of some references and facts that are essential for the case. After returning from his investigation, Sherlock shares his finding with Watson. He believes that the death of Major Sholto, Mary's father's only friend in London, has something to do with the mysterious pearls she has been receiving every year. So in the entire process, when she finds a letter comes to her saying that you have to come alone and meet. She goes to Sherlock and Watson. Then Sherlock just tells Watson that you read this particular kind of book. Until then, I'll find some more references for this case. He goes, he does some research work on it, and finally he comes with his all the findings, and he says that, see Watson, this is the thing that Mary's father's only friend, that is Major Sholto, has to do something with this mysterious pearls. Means they are trying to do something or they are trying to hide something. Sherlock believed that Sholto's heir knows that Mary has been wronged in some way and may be seeking to rectify the problem. Sholto's heir here means maybe his son or his son's son or his grandson, somebody who knows what has happened to her father and knows what is the actual condition or what was going to happen. Later, Mary arrives at Baker Street as planned. Both Sherlock and Watson accompany her to the appointment with the mysterious letter writer. Mary has brought a paper of her father's with her which she wasn't able to decipher. She felt that the paper might be pertinent to the case in some way. So she has brought a particular paper with her which is very important, and she did not understand what was the actual importance of the paper or what is the paper about. She just thought maybe it might be helpful in this particular case. All these three meet at the Baker Street as planned to meet the mysterious person who's sending the pearls as well as the letter. It might help Holmes to decode the mystery and find the disappearance of her father. Sherlock examines the letter and puts it away for safekeeping. So Sherlock just takes a quick glimpse. He's a very famous detective. He's very smart, he's very rational, and he's very logical. He looks at the paper and he just puts it away for later re-examining it. He, Watson, and Mary go to the meeting. There's a person who asks them any of them are police officers, which they deny. The person, who is apparently a servant of the person they are meeting, then drives them in a carriage. The trio arrives in a less fashionable part of London, aka a more rundown working class neighborhood. They are escorted inside a house by a servant. So the person has sent one of his servants to fetch up these three people. So he just inquires whether they are police or not. So here also we come to a different kind of conclusion here. Even if they were police and even if they would say no, you weren't, that particular servant, he did not understand who they actually were. Now Mary didn't bring her friends, but she brought detectives, and these detectives could easily fetch police officers. So here we come to know that the person who has sent his servant is also a normal kind of person who does not know much about that place. So this person puts them in a carriage and he takes them to a very less fashionable part of London. Here means least developed part of London, a neighborhood where all the people are of the working class. And then they are moved into a house by that particular servant. So here we end with the theme, plot, and the synopsis of the extract. We shall meet really very soon with the brainstorming question and answers of this particular novel 4.4, The Sign of 4.